Section 6 of Chapter 6. We're at the end of Chapter 6. Yay! Solving radical equations. And I think this is, once again, there's really nothing new under the sun in algebra. You just keep doing the same thing over and over. I just keep making it a little bit more difficult. So, once again, you're going to isolate the radical. So, and then once you isolate the radical, you're going to raise both sides to the power to get rid of the radical and then solve. So it's a three-step process. I'll show you. Here we go. Jump right into it. So we've got the square root of 5x minus 9 equals 11. In order to get rid of this square root, we're simply have, if I square it, now I just have 5x minus 9, right? Hey, that's easy. The only thing is I've got to make sure I do the same thing to both sides. How many times do I say that? Same thing to both sides when you're solving an equation. So I've got to also square the 11 so that I end up with 121. And now it's a simple equation to solve. Add 9 to both sides. 5x equals 129, 130. Divide by 5. Divide by 5. X is what? 26? Done. All right. You do need to go back in and check just because we are dealing with square roots just so that we don't have a negative number under there somehow. 26 times 5 is going to be what? 125 would be times 5, 20, oh heavens, and I don't have my calculator. 20, okay, let's just do it. 26 times 5, 30, 5 over 10, 30, oh, duh, I just divided it. 130 minus the 9 is the 121, and square root of that is 11. We're done. Good deal. All right. The next thing I want to show you is if we have a root in a word problem. You know I love those because they're the real deal. They're real life. If you've got an 8-foot ladder leaned against the wall, the model that's going to show how far it reaches up, the height that 8-foot ladder is going to reach is modeled by 64 minus x squared, the square root of that, where x is the distance from the base to the wall. So if you've got, you envision this, you've got a ladder and it's leaned against the wall. So h is the distance up and down. The x is the distance away from the wall that the bottom of the ladder is at. So how far from the wall to reach 7 foot off the floor? All right, so here's our equation. The height equals 64 minus x squared, square root of all that. I want to be 7 foot off the floor, so that's this distance. So 7 equals a square root of 64 minus x squared. To get rid of the radical is already by itself. So to get rid of the radical, you're just going to square it. So you got to square both sides. 7 times 7 is 49 equals 64 minus x squared. So now in this case, you can do it one of two ways. You can either move the 64 this way and then divide by -1, or you can move the 49 that way and the x squared over here. So let's add x squared to both sides and subtract 49. So x squared equals 15. And so now I have a squared term. So we're doing both. We're squaring and we're having to take the square root. So the square root of 15, if you plug that into your handy dandy little calculator, you're going to find that x is roughly 3.9 feet. So in order for that ladder to reach 7 feet off the floor, the base has to be almost 4 feet away from the wall. Easy. All right. Let's make it a little more difficult. What do you say? You know that's what I'm always all about. What if you have a fraction as an equation? So not just a root, but you've got a power and a root all in one. Well, first things first, you're still going to isolate the radical. So add 9 to both sides. So x minus 4 to the 2/3 power equals 1925. Now watch this. Ha ha ha. If this were a 1 power, it would be easy because anything to the 1 power is itself. So if I take this whole thing to the 3/2 power, if I flip the power and multiply them, now the powers cross out and all I have is x minus 4, which is much easier to deal with, right? Okay, so we can do whatever we want as long as we do the same thing to both sides. So we raised the left-hand side to the 3/2 power. Let's raise this 25 to the 3/2 power. And you know what that means is 25 cubed with a square root, because the 3 is the exponent, the top number is your exponent, the bottom number is your root. So 3 halves power. And you know the square root of 25 is just 5. And 5 cubed is 125. So we have 125 on this side. And I want to make sure that you can see it. I don't want to get too far down. So now x minus 4 equals 125. Add 4 to both sides. So x equals 129. And you're done. Easy sneezy. You can do this. All right. So if you've got a square root, you simply isolate it and then square it. If you've got a fraction exponent, you're going to flip that fraction and multiply both sides, or raise both sides to that power. All right, I've got 2 more. Where's my eraser? We must have the eraser. All right, we'll put both of them up there. First one is x minus 6, square root of that equals x minus 8. And then we're going to do one more type that's a little bit more tricky. X plus 6, square root of x plus 6 minus 2 equals the square root of x minus 2. Okay, let's start with this first one. Oh dear, hopefully I spread them apart enough. All right, same thing. All right, the only difference is now we've got a binomial on the right-hand side. But you can do this. So if you need to square this side, easy sneezy. You got to do the same thing to both sides. So be careful, you're going to square the whole binomial on this side. So over here we just have x minus 6 because the whole binomial was in the square root. So now the whole binomial comes out when you square it. So now when you square this binomial, you know how to square it. And hopefully you remember the shortcut. If not, put them side by side and FOIL it. But if you remember the shortcut, you can just say x squared minus 2ab, so 8 and 8 are 16, so 16x, and then b squared, so plus 64. If you don't remember that shortcut, go back and find it. I didn't look it up. I don't know which section it's in. But if you remember the shortcut for squaring binomials, that's going to come in handy in this lesson. So then you're going to get everything to one side so that you can solve for x. So you're going to add 6 to both sides, and you're going to subtract x from both sides. So now you've got it set equal to 0. X squared minus 17x plus 70. And now to solve for x, remember you're just going to do FOIL backwards. So x times x is x squared. And you know both symbols are going to be negative because they're the same. And now 70 is 7 times 10. And 10x plus 7x is 17x. Now, you're not quite done because you need to solve it. So if you set each of these equal to 0, now our x is going to be 7 and x equals 10. Now, earlier I said, now you need to check your answers. When you're squaring things, you've got to go back in and check it. Because if we look at this, and I'm going to have to erase this and put it again later because we need more space. It'll be fine. We can do this. All right, let's do a new color because it's fun. All right, we're going to put in, let's put in our 7. So 7 minus 6, square root of that equals 7 minus 8. So 7 minus 6 is 1, and the square root of 1 is 1, and 7 minus 8 is negative 1. Well, 1 does not equal negative 1. So 7 is an extraneous solution. So make sure you're checking for extraneous solutions. All right? If you get 2 answers and you don't have a squared term, then that probably means one of them is extra. All right? All right, so now we check the other one. Now we check 10. 10 minus 6 square root equals 10 minus 8. 10 minus 6 is 4, and the square root of 4 is 2. 10 minus 8 is 2, so 10 is our solution. All right, so just make sure to put put your solutions back in and check for any extraneous solutions. All right, I want to make sure that I have room for the other one, so I'm going to erase this, so you might need to pause and go back and get it. Here we go. Let's put it back up here. X plus 6 plus square root of x plus 6 minus 2 equals the square root of x minus 2. Okay. The reason I wanted to do this one is, you've got square roots on both sides, but you've got this extra 2 in here. You're just going to have to just deal with it. All right? Hang in there. So what you're going to need to do is just pick one side or the other to start with. Because this is already isolated, let's start with this one and let's square it. Now that's fine. You can do that as long as you do. I hear you all saying the same thing to both sides. So we squared this side, so we're going to square this side. All right? So this side is easy. It's just x minus 2. This side is a little bit trickier, and this is where it's going to be really handy if you know that shortcut for squaring binomials. Because what you've got is this is a binomial where this is the first term and this is the second term. So you're going to have the first term squared, which is just x plus 6. And then you're going to add to that, you're going to add multiplying these two together and then multiply by 2. And if you can't figure all that out, you're going to have to go through and you're going to have x plus, square root of x plus 6 times negative 2, and then the negative 2 times the square root of x plus 6. And it'll work that way, all right? But if you know the shortcut, it's much easier. So negative 2 times square root of x plus 6 times 2. So 2 times 2 is 4. Okay? And then the last term squared is plus 4. All right. So now you're going to combine all the like terms that you can. 6 plus 4 is 10. And then what you can do is subtract. Let's put it on here. So x plus 10 minus 4 square root of x plus 6 equals x minus 2. So now we're going to subtract 10 from both sides, and we're going to subtract this x because we still want to isolate this radical now. So subtract x from both sides. So now these drop out, and you just have negative 4 square root of x plus 6 equals, oh, these x's dropped out. All I have over here is negative 12. Just see where I got it all? All right, if you didn't, back up and look again and look to see where did I get those numbers, because this really is just solving. It just looks scarier because of the square root symbol. You've got to get this radical isolated again. We got rid of this one, but now we've got to isolate this one as well. So you're going to divide both sides by the negative 4 to get this radical isolated. So now you just have the square root of x plus 6. Negative times a negative is a positive. 12 divided by 4 is 3. So now we've got to square both sides. Whatever you do to one side, you got to do to the other side. So now x plus 6 equals 9. Subtract 6 from both sides. So x equals 3. Whew. And then you can put that back in to be sure. 3 plus 6 is 9. Square root of 9 is 3. 3 minus 2 is 1. And 3 minus 2 is 1. Square root of 1 is 1. So 1 equals 1. You got it right. All right? Whew. You can do this. It's a lot and it's tedious, but you can do it. The biggest thing is you might want to go back and review how to square a binomial. That's going to be very, very handy if you can just do that automatically instead of having to FOIL those out each time. All right? Other than that, you can do this. You got this. We're at the end of the chapter. Yay! All right, see you soon.